Well, I'm in downtown Arcadia. Arcadia Township Hall. Bright sunny day in January. Arcadia Fire Department.
Yes, I am.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Heavenly Father, be with us as we go about the business of the township. Guide us and direct us and be respectful of one another. In your name we pray, amen. Amen. Okay, clerk, we'll do a roll call vote.
Present is Mike.
Here.
Supervisor Janice. Clerk Betty. Greg. Here. Greg.
I don't count.
And one absentee, our treasurer. Okay, public participation at this meeting will be received only during the public comment portion of the agenda. Members of the public will be given one opportunity per person for a 3-minute time period to make their comments and address the board. I just want to cite Michigan law so there's no confusion. When a person is breaching the peace at any public meeting, the supervisor may order the person to leave the meeting. If the person refuses to leave, he or she is deemed guilty of a misdemeanor and punishable by a fine. That's Michigan law, MCL 41.101. We will be taking public comment before we have our auditor's preliminary report. Is there anyone who would like to make any comments at this time? Please step up to the microphone and do so. Cite your name, please. Anyone have any public comment? This is your chance. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paul Smith. I'm hoping that when you do get the report, it's made public, but also I'm hoping that we have a breakdown of who provided what data. I'd like the raw data and the source documents that were used for the audit. The findings from the interviews. Any communications from the auditors to and from members of the township. All of that information be made available to the public in addition to the report. That's all.
Thank you for your comment. Any other public comment at this time? Going once? Going twice? Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce Carl Heiser, our forensic auditor, and his partner,
Yes.
Laura Merchant. This is our attorney, Craig Rolfe, and you know all of the township board members. Yes.
I can do it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Carl, will you address the board, please? That's perfect.
Okay. Thank you. Good afternoon, members of the board and citizens of Arcadia Township. My name is Carl Heiser. I'm a CPA, Certified Fraud Examiner. I've been doing forensic engagements for 13 years, and I've been a certified public accountant for over 30 years. I was engaged as an accountant to review the ongoing issues concerning finances and other issues of the township. I have put together a brief report for the board to consider with recommended actions that I think will move this organization forward here. I'm going to read the report and with my recommendations, and the board has a copy of this report for the first time. I've gone through a number of the events that I've reviewed and documented, and I will read them to you one at a time. Starting out, a complaint was filed November 16th, 2016 by Deborah Christine Eckhart with her deputy alleging false payroll documents. I would like you to see incident number 71-5548-16 on file. That was with the Michigan State Police. The case and complaint were declined by the Manistee County Chief Prosecuting Attorney Jonathan Hausworth on February 10th, 2017. So that's an ended issue. There was a complaint and nothing materialized. Shortly thereafter, a second complaint was filed in 2017 with the Manistee County Sheriff's Office by the Arcadia Township Board, alleging various suspicious financial events concerning Arcadia Township funds. I do not have a copy of this complaint number 151-1886-7. During our investigation of records, the state of Michigan notified the township of 2 financial fund deficits noted in the annual audit report. The regulatory notice is a serious event. My firm assisted and prepared both reports to the state of Michigan. The board approved the DEP. DEP is a deficit elimination plan. And it was filed with the state of Michigan. And the 2 funds were the road fund and the marina fund, which were reporting the deficit. There is a corrective action in place. Point 4. The marina bank account with West Shore Bank has not been reconciled for approximately 2 years. The township has engaged an outside CPA to reconcile the yearly activity. Ms. Amy Plumstead, CPA from Frankfort, Michigan, has been engaged by the township to reconcile these accounts. We agree with this appointment. Number 5. The unresolved issue with West Shore Bank has not been reconciled for approximately 2 years. The township, I already read that, I'm sorry. The unresolved issues for the township and its residents are the FOIA requests by the treasurer and resident groups through their attorneys. These issues are the required statutory duties of the board and the treasurer. The 2 issues remaining unresolved. At this point, the township has incurred legal, forensic, and outside fees exceeding $50,000 with no end in sight due to these FOIA requests and debates going back and forth. We also noted all township bank accounts have not been reconciled in good form, and this is an internal control failure that needs to be corrected. The township treasurer has elected to direct current Arcadia Township winter tax payments to be sent to her residents. We disagree with this change in procedures. We have what I call a cash asset risk factor, and the changes in procedure has not been, to my knowledge, been approved by the board. My conclusion is all financial records and property tax payments must be mailed and located in the Arcadia Township. Arcadia Township official records must be maintained and reported in QuickBooks. We currently have a mixture of manual records and QuickBooks. So in other words, to have correct financial records, we have to put all of our records on QuickBooks that are currently being used by the township. I'm happy to say that all disbursements paid by the township through the clerk's office are on the official records of QuickBooks. So half the problem is resolved. We have to pull in the cash receiving and other issues that need to be reconciled. I also want to mention, as a result of all the activity here, I have a list of 6 attorneys that have been involved in the event that you have experienced. I'm saying 6 attorneys. I've got their names, they'll be in my final report. This is over the top, in my opinion. Also, number 9, the November 2017 Treasurer's Report lists a designation from the General Fund restriction of $50,000 for the admin SET, which is school tax. This is on the financial report, and I see no basis for this designation, and this should be removed from all records. And this was presented at December 14, 2017 regular board meeting. So I see a lot of areas that need correction, and when these items are put on the records without a foundation, they need to be looked at and corrected. There's a lot of corrections that have to be done. It should be noted, as of 2 weeks ago, Stoops Arcadia Marina has not been billed for the 2017 marine dockage privileges. We project this billing, which should be billed and come back to the township at approximately $2,700. And at lunch today, we did get a call back, is that correct?
Yes.
And they said they are still waiting for a bill from the 2017 season that ended in September. Don't wait your classes. Okay, conclusion of this is my forensic accountant's preliminary report. These ongoing duties, debates, professional fees, and QuickBooks report must stop immediately. When I say immediately, I mean at 3:14 today. We need to go forward. We can't have the FOIA requests, reading of the laws, going back and forth. We need positive action to stop this in the right manner. I suggest a meeting of the minds or alternative single actions as follows. I see corrective actions. I'm suggesting hopefully corrective actions are recommended no later than February 1, 2018, which is a week from today. That's my recommendation to bring this to an end. As a forensic accountant, we must clearly state my report is not complete and all persons of interest are assumed innocent until found otherwise in the court of law. I have no allegations to present. I see what I represented in my report, ongoing debates and issues, and the records are still need to be brought up to date. I recommend three actions. Number 1, the township treasurer must evaluate her options. Number 2, the board must evaluate its options going forward to bring this to an end. And the third is the Arcadia Township residents. Everyone here who's a taxpayer, you have options to help correct this. But I want to stop now. We can't afford it. We need to bring the records up. And we can't afford to have any more deficit elimination plans put in place. That concludes my report.
So then we have some questions and thoughts and concerns.
Yes.
Or did you have anything that you wanted to add at this time?
No, nothing further, thank you.
Okay. Carl, you had sent a list of requirements that you had asked on November 18th from our treasurer. And there are 7 requests. Would you like me to read them?
Yes, go ahead.
I need the board treasurer's reports for April, May, June, July, August, and September, October, and November. Send what you have from April 2017 through August 2017. We have not had a treasurer's report. We get a fund balance report, but no treasurer's report. I'm asking, did you receive any reports from her? Because the board has not received those. Did you receive those reports?
I did not receive the requested specific reports.
Thank you. You asked that you sent the Marina Fund General Ledger to you. That's on file in QuickBooks. And you asked specific dates from April 1st through September 2017. Did you receive those?
We did not receive those requested documents.
I have, these are your words, I have hand-prepared bank balances for some township funds. Please send me the Marina Bank reconciliations for April 2017 through September 2017. Did you receive those?
I received a partial incomplete list.
Okay. Send me the Marina receipts, the book for 2016 through the closing of 2017. Provide all originals. Did you receive those?
I did receive a receipt book, yes.
Any originals?
Yes.
Please explain the $150 standing cash you provided during Arcadia Day celebration to the harbor master for making change purposes. Did you receive an explanation of where that cash came from and how it was generated?
We did not receive an explanation.
You asked her if she was ever paid back, or has she resolved that issue of the $150? Did she ever reply to that?
Never addressed the reply.
What is the cash count amount that you hold in your personal safe at home? Did you ever receive that information?
No, we did not.
So you asked that. You asked that. Everyone can hear me okay, correct? Okay. You asked in this request that her prompt attention be given to these matters and delivered to her office. I made a trip to your office to deliver some things you had requested from me, and those things were not provided to me or you, correct?
That is correct, and that was in December, I believe. So,
In November, actually.
November.
And I delivered items to you in December, you are
Yes.
correct. Okay. We had an issue of a withdrawal of $200,000 from West Shore Bank on the signature of the treasurer and the deputy treasurer within 2 weeks of our treasurer taking office. Was that issue ever resolved? Did she ever make those records available to you?
We were able to reconcile and resolve the issue. That'll be part of my final report.
Okay. You are aware, and I know I sent you a copy of the email that was sent where our treasurer identifies herself as the township attorney of Arcadia. Was there ever any resolution with that issue? No.
Not to my knowledge, no resolution.
Okay. Those are the questions I have right now. Anyone else have any statements or questions they have?
I would just like to make a statement to the township. Upon receiving some interest income mail for, this past week, I realized that there are township bank accounts that it appears to be, I'm unable to find any record of their existence or statements within the township hall. So basically what I'm saying is there's township funds and accounts that I'm not aware of. And I feel that that needs to be taken care of. We need to find out where our funds are.
Could you comment on the key that you have for the safety deposit?
I also received a renewal for a safety deposit box at West Shore Bank that I didn't know was in existence, and the treasurer is the only one that knows the contents of that drawer, and she is the only one with a key. This is one of a list that I could go through, but I won't take up any more time right now.
May I address an issue, perhaps partly with the clerk, but leading into that with an explanation? I understood at the beginning of the township's relationship with the forensic accounting firm that although there were many what I'll call peripheral issues, and not to diminish the importance of some of those issues, but the core issue, the central issue, the central focus was on the ability of the township board, as the governing body of the township, to understand whether all the financial affairs of the township were in proper order. And I understand that the township board had some apprehensions in that respect because there were certain inabilities of the township clerk to undertake her responsibilities as essentially the township's accountant in performing really a core function with respect to finances, which is that checks and balances relationship that Michigan statutes that relate to municipal accounting procedures are designed to cultivate. With the whole idea being that no one person can be the sole source of information and knowledge about township finances. So, before I get to my question, let me elaborate on it just a bit more. I've indicated the township clerk functions as somewhat as the township's accountant in this respect. The township treasurer functions, think of her as in effect the township's banker or banking agent. The township treasurer has certain duties that are solely the duties of the township treasurer. The township clerk has certain duties that are solely the duties of the township clerk. But there are functions of those two offices in which those two officials are compelled by law to coordinate and work together. They don't have to be in the same room, but to work together in performing their respective functions to assure the township board and ultimately the people of the community that every dollar of public funds for which this township is responsible from whatever source is properly accounted for. For the clerk to perform her duties as the township's accountant, the clerk has to have access to what I will call, for this purpose, core records, core financial records, including deposit slips, be they original or copies, monthly bank statements, be they originals or copies. I understand that there have been periods of time for which, getting to my question now, at least the first one, for which the clerk has been unable to perform her duties to reconcile the accounting functions of the two offices because she's not been receiving those core financial records from the treasurer. Do I understand that correctly?
Yes, I do not have enough information to bring the general ledger up to date. We have enlisted help from Amy Plumstead. She too is having difficulty reconstructing the movement of money based on the records that we have. I have access to bank statements, but not individual detail, except for one of the banks. So, and I don't have access to all of the accounts.
Well, that is a legally unacceptable and frankly financially dangerous and perilous position for this community to be in. And I'll elaborate a little bit on the banking situation from what little bit of it I know of with respect to this township. And let me know if I don't have this correct, because I think there's another problem here which this board will have to address. The township by statute has the sole responsibility and authority to determine the financial institutions with which the township will do business. Once the township board determines those banks, let's just call them all banks, it designates that list of approved financial institutions. The treasurer is the official with the responsibility to, and the authority to determine what funds will be deposited with and held at which banks. And she has some, he or she, in this case she, has some latitude, some discretion to determine what types of investment vehicles in which township funds should be held, to assure their liquidity at the appropriate times, but also to assure that there's a, when it's financially prudent, a rate of return on the people's money. So I understand there's been a problem here, and I think it's a very serious problem, in that when the treasurer has not been forthcoming with disclosing certain core financial records to the clerk, and the township board, I think through its designee, perhaps supervisor, has attempted to obtain those core documents from banks the township board has designated as approved depositories. The banks have, at least one, has indicated they were not going to do that. Essentially acting on almost the assumption that it's the treasurer's bank account, not the township's account. Do I have that right?
Yes.
Okay. And does the board, does the township still have funds in that bank?
We have funds, yes. This is West Shore we're talking about? I did get my name on the accounts at West Shore, and I have access to statements for 4 of the 6 accounts. The other 2 accounts, I'm not sure what they are. I don't get statements for them, and I would have to go up and purchase those from the bank.
But you have to purchase them?
Well, they charged me for them in the past because we have a portal and we have access to them. They will not, and the treasurer is the administrator of that online account. They will not give me access without her doing it, no matter what I've presented them with. I cannot get access, online access to the rest of those accounts without the treasurer doing it.
Well, without knowing anything more.
Excuse me, you mean approval or authorizing?
The treasurer has to go online as the administrator and give me access to those accounts.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, there are many problems with that, but I think those problems are sourced in the fact that some financial institutions don't really have an adequate or accurate, or sometimes any, good understanding of the financial responsibilities of township officials. And what banking practices may be entirely suitable for a private individual and assuring that nobody else can access that account without appropriate authorization, doesn't work so well with a municipality such as a township, where without someone other than the treasurer, specifically the clerk, having access to the applicable banking records, the clerk cannot perform the duties of law to which the clerk is entrusted by statutes, and therefore the township board can't determine that its financial affairs are in order. So I'm going to suggest that unless that situation with that particular financial institution can be remedied forthwith, that this board consider whether or not that financial institution should continue to be one of the designated approved financial institutions of this township. Translation, consider taking them off your approved list and directing the treasurer to close those accounts. It's not a tolerable situation for this board, and starting with the clerk, to not understand whether in any of those accounts the dollars that should be there are there at the appropriate times. That's unacceptable.
And you can show with the records that you have that we have passed a resolution asking funds to be moved to an account, and that has not been accomplished.
That was the state savings. I
State
believe.
savings, it's a different bank, but we're
Yeah,
still
the
having
fire.
those issues.
The problem is we have requested that the fire department actually in, I believe it was May of last year, it was asked that the fire department checking account be removed from state savings and moved to a different bank. And we reiterated that last month, but it still has never happened.
Has not been
So,
accomplished. And resolutions have been passed.
and we passed resolutions to that effect.
So, do we, these two accounts at one financial institution that you, the clerk, don't have any information about, but you know exist? You
I know
have
that
been
I know that there's 6 at West Shore Bank. I have access online to 4 of them. 2 of them I can get statements on, 2 of them I can just see balances on. The other 2, I know I believe get state of Michigan deposits because they're transferred, but I don't have any online access and no paperwork is coming in.
Okay, and it's those two that you could just get balances, you understand that that does not enable you to perform your
No, I
statutory
cannot do
duties.
that. And I found out today that there are 6 accounts at State Savings Bank, which only 2 of them, well, there was a tax account that I was aware of, but I am only aware of 2 accounts at State Savings, which they do give me full access to. But I don't have a knowledge of the other 4 or what they are.
Do you know, you being the clerk, do you know whether or not the treasurer, who has been in office a little over a year now, understands that those core financial records need to be accessible to the clerk so the clerk can perform the duties of that office to be sure that the duties of the office of the treasurer are also being properly performed? Do you know that the treasurer understands that she needs to share? Has she been requested to share those documents and explain why?
I've requested in writing, I've requested verbally. It is the treasurer's stance that the state of Michigan gives her statutory right over all township money and that she alone has full access to it. I've given her back the deposit slip she's given me and asked for more detail, and I still have not received. She has written some more on it, but I still do not have enough to track money timely.
Okay. And it sounds like we're talking apples and oranges here because the treasurer's duties do entail managing, to use that term, managing the township dollars. But that's a very different situation than providing the access to core banking records, the financial records of the township, to enable someone other than the treasurer to know that dollars can be properly accounted for, and that other someone is the clerk, as I've indicated.
Right.
So these are serious problems.
And the state statute states that the township board determines by resolution the time and other details of deposits. And by resolution, we have asked for things to be accomplished and records to be produced, and our treasurer has not complied.
Okay, and I think, do I understand correctly that relating back to, I believe, Marina collected revenues, that going back to the last summer, there were some issues that have still not been resolved. Not sure if that's referenced down here or not on this preliminary report, that relate to cash receipts from Marina personnel that have not been documented in the treasurer's records.
Correct.
And I didn't phrase that correctly, and correlated with deposit records.
Correct.
We have receipts that do not match deposit amounts. And the records, the most accurate records for the marina that we have come from the marina itself, from the DNR site. But those deposits are not kept intact. The deposits are mixed and then deposited, so tracking has been made almost impossible. I would say I'm unable to do it because I cannot track deposits against statements, against financial records.
The harbor master is, by policy, to put the daily deposits into an envelope and seal them, and they are kept at a safe at the marina. The treasurer is to pick up those deposits. They are not to be opened until the bank teller opens them. We have not been able to, with the bank records we have and deposits, some of the deposits that we have not been able to correlate because there's been a commingling of funds. Those envelopes are being opened before the bank teller receives them, and a lump sum deposit is being made. So those bank records, we do not have those original deposits. And there should be a deposit slip that shows. The harbor master's envelope indicates $127 for June 7th. There should be a deposit for June 7th, one for June 8th, one for June 9th, one for June 10th. What we can reconcile at this time is that there is a lump sum deposit that is made maybe once or twice a week.
So are there, at the marina, there are, and by the way, I'm referring to the townships.
We own the marina.
There are there launch fees, boat launch fees?
Oh, yes.
And are those collected by the harbor master? Or?
Yes, the harbor
Well,
master.
you made reference to DNR on the line. How
Well,
is it?
Reservation system.
That's our reservation system,
Got it.
point of sale.
Okay,
There's
but those
two.
revenues are, by those revenues, I mean launch revenues. Those are
Yes.
collected by the harbor master.
Yes, and those are through point of sale through the DNR system.
Okay, and is the township's accounting system for the marina set up, or supposed to be set up, so that those launch fee revenues can be accounted for specifically and differently from other revenues the harbor master would collect for things like, what, it's gasoline and
Correct.
things of that
And
nature?
that would be what those daily deposits are, not the DNR.
And some of those sales are subject to sales tax, right?
Absolutely. and
Yes.
that's
Some are
what
not.
we're able to do, yeah.
And fuel tax.
And fuel tax.
Yes,
And to date, we have not been able to file either one of those.
if you can't reconcile.
We can't reconcile.
All those receipts.
Super.
All right, well, that's a problem.
It's a huge problem. And Greg, did you have anything you would like to?
No, you've covered pretty much everything. I just wanted to clarify something. You're unable to complete the audit at this time because records that you requested have not been delivered. Is that?
Yes, that is true, but I'm using another source to recover records, and we should be bringing this engagement to an end very quickly with my final review of marina documentation that I will be receiving. Also, I do want to mention your year-end closes in March 31st
Yeah.
this year. In other words, in 2.5 months. I'm urging quick action. These can be fixed, whatever it takes, but the current system of asking and receiving incomplete is not working. Half the records are already right because they have been properly paid in QuickBooks by our clerk, and so it's a matter of pulling the revenues together, whatever it takes. So I expect this to be engagement wrapped up very soon with the final report. Thank you.
Mike, did you have anything you would like to?
Well, we've already had several DEP reports come across that we've had to pay. We've got any more coming at us
For
for deficit elimination plans from the state? Is there any more coming at us?
I think we're through for the year ending March 31st, 2017. That was last year.
Yeah.
Now, based on because I've worked these for 10 years here, and what I see where we are right now, I can assure you there's already items in distress that will raise at least, in my opinion, another 2 or 3.
So we've got no surprises forthcoming then.
No, there will be no surprise because they are coming, because you can't undo the past, the missing records. Yes, so,
We are in jeopardy.
yes.
We are in jeopardy, Mike, to add to that, because I am unable to match the fund balances to our accepted budget. So the budget cannot be adjusted, or we can't amend the budget because we cannot tell our profit and loss.
Well, yeah. you
We
don't know
are
what's in the-
in
you don't know what's happening.
non-compliance.
But that's the whole reason for this. We don't know where we're at.
All right. Any other recommendations from the board at this time?
I have a couple other things I'd like to speak to,
Please.
please, while we're all here, and I'm doing this in part because you have so many members of the public who are interested enough to attend this meeting, and that's a positive thing.
Can everyone hear okay?
Exact microphone on.
I'll speak, I am capable of speaking much louder, I'll try to do that, thanks for that prod, Neil. Two issues alluded to in this very preliminary report that I think I should speak to make sure people don't have a misunderstanding in the public, and certainly not the board. FOIA request. It is certainly true that the township, and that means primarily the clerk, has been somewhat besieged lately with FOIA requests. And when I use the term FOIA, I mean Freedom of Information Act, request for public records under a Michigan statute that's designed to facilitate such requests. Those requests have been, in some respects, I'd say most respects, substantively related to or derived by or associated with some of these controversial matters. They are often not much fun to deal with, I'm sure, from the clerk's perspective, as a very, well, intended to be a very part-time official of this township. And they may have some expense. Let me rephrase that. They most certainly do involve some expenses for which the township cannot, by law, recoup all those expenses from the requester. Big semicolon, capital but. The law provides an opportunity for anyone to request from the township any existing records of the township on any matter, at any time. And the law imposes on the township the responsibility to respond to such request in a manner that is consistent with what the statute provides. So as long as someone submits a FOIA request that does sufficiently describe the document they're requesting to enable the township's FOIA coordinator to locate it and either provide access to it or copy it, depending on what the requester is requesting. As onerous and unpleasant as that may often be, that's part of township government, or any public entity. So, expenses the township may incur in respect to those requests may be unfortunate in some respects when they can't be recouped from the requester, but that's just the nature of the beast. Okay, enough on that?
Well, maybe the township needs to know, maybe I've been negligent, I should have brought forth or made public more of the FOIA requests that we received, but I have received numerous from the treasurer herself, and each one I have to speak to the attorney about on how to answer these, because some of the things that have been asked for are direct financial documents that I am unable to produce based on the fact that I don't have the information that I got from the treasurer herself. So she is FOIAing me for information for reports, to produce reports that I can't produce because I do not have the information from her in order to do it.
Okay, the other subject that's alluded to in this preliminary report, I feel I probably should speak to so people don't walk away with the misimpression, is the issue of mailed property tax payments. I'm not going to provide a legal dissertation on this because that would take some time and nobody really wants to listen to all of that. But I have provided on more than one occasion a legal opinion to the township at the township's request dealing with that issue. Because the township board has in its prerogative as the governing body of the township previously adopted a policy that provides that all township mail is to be directed to, that's mailed, is to be directed to the township official post office box, just a few feet away at the post office. All official township mail is then accounted for by the clerk, and the clerk then internally has the responsibility to disseminate that mail to the appropriate persons, whether by addressee on the envelope or by determining from the contents who, oh, this is a fire chief matter, oh, this is a trustee matter. All well and good, except for the situation with property tax payments by mail. The treasurer determined that she preferred to have property tax payments made by mail submitted to her home and not mailed to the township P.O. box. When I researched that matter in great detail, I determined that, in my opinion, the responsibility of the treasurer for the collection of property taxes in the statute did not empower her to determine all the details of the collection process, including specifying a mailing address for property tax payments, contrary to the policy of the township board for all township mail generally. And in the course of providing my, actually subsequent to that first opinion of the township, when this issue came up again, flared up, same issue, it just seemed to flare up and not go away, I conferred with an entity known as the Michigan Townships Association, and I determined that at least at this time, they are not in sync with my analysis. And I've advised, I'm not talking out of school here, I've advised the board this, and this should be something that's not a big secret. MTA believes that the authority of the treasurer to collect property taxes does give her some latitude to determine, in the event of mailed payments, to where those payments should be mailed. That, by the way, is not the same legal guidance that was forthcoming from MTA a number of years ago when the law firm with which I was previously associated served as MTA legal counsel. But be that as it may, there is a legal question, I think it's fair to say, and I want this board to not be under any misunderstanding here, that as to whether or not the treasurer has the sole, or has the unilateral, would be better word, the unilateral authority to dictate that mailed property tax payments should be sent to an unsecure home address instead of a secure township post office box. That's an unresolved legal question in case law. And I would not propose, hopefully, that Arcadia Township, or excuse me, the Township of Arcadia is the township that has to establish case law on that subject. Members of the board and members of the public may find it mindlessly foolish to have dollars sitting in an unsecure mailbox at a residence rather than a post office box in the United States Post Office, but that's not the legal question. That's a prudence or policy issue, a judgment issue, a common sense issue, and trust me, those kinds of things don't always factor into what the law may indicate. So I wish that it was more clearly established in the law. I think it ought to be, but if it's not, at least in someone's opinion other than myself, I feel I have a responsibility to make sure the board understands that, and we don't go off perhaps down the road too far, too fast, without proper basis to do that. That doesn't mean that members of the public can't have their own opinions about the prudence and/or foolishness of having their dollars in an unsecured mailbox. Members of the public can, of course, come to their own conclusions in that regard. That's a totally different matter.
And members of the public spoke about this months ago, and there was a resolution passed by this board stating that the only legal and authoritative P.O. box was 318 in Arcadia, and also the utilization of the provided lock box that we have here at Township Hall because of the concern that the people had. And the the treasurer unilaterally decided that it would come to her home for personal address, unbeknownst to the township. Carl?
May I make a comment?
Yes.
In my report, I specifically said I disagreed with the fact that township dollars are going to the treasurer's home that have been dedicated. I'm not here to address and debate the legal issue. I'm talking about asset risk management of this organization. That's American Institute, or as a CPA and forensic accountant, I have to tell you you're at risk. As opposed to saying, oh, don't worry about it. Then the question, well, if it happens, there's a break-in, things are lost. Why didn't you say it, Carl? I'm saying it's an asset risk management decision. And that's how I approached it. I'm not challenging the law. Everyone here is at risk if you mail your tax payments in at a residential mailbox. There's a possibility of high risk. So, and that's, I just wanted to conclude that my opinion is based on risk management assessments.
Any other board members have any other comments? I feel that this board has no choice but to move forward with the criminal investigation at this time. We have done our due diligence, we have asked for those records, we have asked and have not been able to receive. We have paid thousands upon thousands of dollars to a forensic accountant to secure those records. We have not been able to receive them. So I would entertain a motion that we move forward with a criminal action at this time.
Could you elaborate a moment, please, on what are you, when you use the term criminal action, that to me connotes a violation of a specific statute.
Right.
Where are you headed?
I'm saying we need to have a search warrant secured for her personal home address and any other buildings on the property to secure those records that we need. And that the detective sergeant that we created, or Detective Soper, that we started the investigation with, be instructed to move forward with this.
I have a question that might be, if our policy states that all township records must be contained within the township hall, if I, for one, do not comply with that, am I breaking the law? Is that criminal, or is that
No.
just,
No.
is it a misdemeanor? Is it
No.
whatever? It's
No, it's
just.
not. There is no statute that requires all township records to be in the physical presence of the walls of the township office. There are many townships, especially in more rural areas, some of whom barely have a township hall,
Right.
where the primary officials of the township, supervisor, clerk, treasurer, don't keep hardly any records at the township hall. They keep them at their home. However, they're fully accessible, either to members of the public in response to a FOIA request, and they're fully accessible certainly to other members of the board, and they're not withheld from other members of the board in a properly functioning township, even where they're not retained on site.
So what does our policy stand for then? Nothing?
What,
We made a policy that for our township, that all our records would be kept within the township hall because we now have that space.
is that in the
It's in our general
subsequent to that, subsequent to the policy manual adopted June 11, 2015?
Was it a
It
resolution?
was a resolution.
There was a resolution.
Well, that,
So what I'm trying to get a grasp on is we dictate how, as we manage as a board, how we would like to do business. And then it's just ignored.
I would have to say that would be an overbroad resolution. If it was intended to mean that no official of the township could retain any records off-site, I would have a different attitude if the policy required officials to either keep the records of their office on the premises or copies of their records on the premises, where they're then readily accessible to other members of the board and the public as appropriate.
And even if, when the resolution was made and the treasurer agreed at the time to move into Township Hall and keep all original and keep township records at Township Hall, and there was a date for that move to happen, and voted for that themselves, and still has not complied with that.
I'm
I know.
torn because that sounds like a wise and prudent policy,
Yes,
especially in the recent, by recent I mean
the
last
environment that we're dealing with.
13 months or so, experience of this community. But that doesn't, just because it seems to make sense, doesn't mean it would pass legal muster if it was challenged.
True.
And even if the treasurer was a supporter on the record of that outcome, I suppose the treasurer, like any person, could indicate that they had an opportunity to revisit the subject and change their thinking on that and decide that they would prefer to keep at least certain records at the home where they're maintaining a home office. And that would probably be a legally defensible outcome.
So
Although
what-
not perhaps in the best interest of everyone in the current situation that you're dealing with here.
So what are my legal rights for getting those records because I don't get them?
That's really the nub.
Yes.
You know, I have asked for them, I don't have them, I cannot do my job. We've asked for them to come,
All right,
they're
so
not here, so for me, I find that an issue is that basically we can't manage the township.
absolutely. That really gets to the what next.
Okay.
What next? And I don't know to what extent the board wants to go there today, but maybe today is the time to at least
It is
kick
the
this
time.
open.
Yes.
I would suggest that if the forensic accounting work is anticipated to draw to a close soon, and it sounds like very soon,
Very soon,
within about how long max?
I'd say 2 weeks.
Okay, then it seems to me it would be wise and responsible for the township board and probably myself to know what a final report might indicate. A final report with all kinds of good documentation that might be the kind of report that would be of interest potentially to a law enforcement agency if the board were to request a referral of that report to a law enforcement agency for consideration of any applicable charges. That kind of a report would also be of interest to someone such as the township attorney if the board wanted to consider what civil actions would be open to the township to try to remedy the current dysfunction.
So, Carl, when we contracted with you, our contract was originally for $12,500.
Yes,
We have paid in excess of that amount already.
right.
And what kind of dollars are we talking about for your final report?
I think we're talking about a small insignificant amount to wrap it up. I do want to remind the township.
Small and significant, are we talking thousands of dollars or hundreds?
We're probably talking about $2,500 at the max.
So the letter that we got from you the other day is insignificant now, you're saying? Or are you going to, because we received another billing from you for another $7,000. So now we're talking, this township has spent $19,000.
Yes, and I pointed out the cause for the overrun, number one. Number two, we're real close to the end with the final report. And I believe we'll have it done in 2 weeks. And you asked me what it would be, and I said, I think it'll be insignificant, and I said no more than $2,500, if that.
So that's $2,500 on top of the 7?
Possibly,
Okay.
possibly.
And what is the cause for these overages? I apologize, I didn't get to read through what was.
A lot of it had to do, as I indicated in my letter.
Sorry for making you repeat that.
Well, that's all right. Had to do with the marina issue and the digging for financial records, which we have not been able to receive. We could have been within budget 2 to 3 weeks ago if this information had been provided. However, the case now, I do want to remind, is under review right now by Detective Sergeant Sofer with the Manistee County Sheriff's Office, and he's working through certain things that'll probably bring closure that he can provide me, and then we can wrap this up. But it's premature, nor is it ready for me to comment on this final product at this time.
So these are documents that you've asked the treasurer for, and they have not been forthcoming. And so now we're in the process of getting a search warrant for those records from the banks. Is that what we're talking about?
We're in the process of securing through the detective certain records that we need.
Okay.
Because I can't leave the stones unturned when they are available, and we do have an open incident report with the Sheriff's Office.
May I ask Carl if you can disclose this in a public forum? What is this? What's the nature of that incident report that's currently pending with the Sheriff's Department?
I do not have a copy of it.
What was the nature of the complaint that would have initiated the incident report, if you can tell me that, or wish to tell me that now, or perhaps otherwise?
Let me make sure I can give you a complete.
All right.
You know, let us get back with a thorough answer on that to the board and to you.
But it concerns some of these financial, what I'll call irregularities?
Yes, it is.
Okay. And related policies or related practices
Practices.
of one or more township officials.
Correct.
Okay, I think I hear what you're saying. Okay, so for the board to try to actually take some kind of affirmative action that's within your control. You have the two obvious options, I suppose. One would be the path that would be kind of indicated by the motion the supervisor made, that would that would essentially pursue potential criminal prosecution against an official for violating Michigan statutes. If you do that, understand that the township might be the complainant, but you're not in charge of that action. The law enforcement officials who will be investigating will be in charge of the investigation, and they will make either a charging request or suggest no charges to the county prosecuting attorney's office, who would then be in control of charging decisions, actually determining whether or not to charge someone with something, and pursue that as a criminal violation of law. And such prosecution would be, of course, subject to all the constitutional protections and provisions of law for any defendant, any criminal prosecution, including presumption of innocence and a burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And my concern is that I'm not poo-pooing that as a potential option for the board to consider, but if the board is looking for the ability to bring about some closure to some of these issues yesterday, keep in mind that a criminal investigation could potentially take some time, although I would think that perhaps a final report might help with some of that timeline made available to the prosecuting or investigating agencies. And a criminal prosecution will, if charges are initiated, would likely take months to be adjudicated.
And we can't go through that.
So,
What are our options?
the other option, which would be the township board, itself, acting as a plaintiff to initiate a civil action in the county circuit court and asking the court to enter certain relief on either a preliminary basis and ultimately a final basis that would address these kinds of controversies. And for example, such an action could request the court enter appropriate injunctive relief, to order an official of the township to stop doing something a certain way or to start doing something a certain way. And some of that relief could be entered on a preliminary basis. The other option that would be potentially part of a circuit court suit is the request for the court to appoint what's called a special master. And I will just tell you just a little bit about that, because I happen to have been appointed to serve as a special master in another county several years ago in a lawsuit brought by a township against its treasurer for circumstances that were not entirely dissimilar to what you're dealing with here. And when the circuit court appoints a special master, the circuit court is saying, the judge is saying, well, there's obviously some problems here with procedures and legal requirements. I don't have the ability as a judge to micromanage that township, and particularly its financial functions, and more particularly the functioning of the office of the township treasurer in that case. But I have the authority to appoint a special master to act as my mini judge and to get to do exactly that, to get all in the business of, in that case, the treasurer, and issue actually orders with the authority of the court, issue orders directing the treasurer how to perform certain duties and how not to perform certain duties. And whereas in that case, for example, the subject of the special master order does not comply with those orders of the special master, that person will find himself standing before a circuit court judge on contempt.
So basically, our goal is to get our financial information, balance our general ledger,
Make
do
sure
our
your funds are
budget,
secure.
make sure that we know where our money is, and our only recourse is court action.
Well, you, as I think the board knows, and I think probably most members of the public know, that the treasurer is an elective office. This board, the treasurer is not an employee of the township in this sense. The board doesn't have any authority to fire the treasurer, doesn't have any authority to fire any of you. So that's not an option. The township board can, as this board is well aware, can make efforts to work with an official to try to adjust certain practices and procedures to make things work out together. But if the official chooses to not abide by those matters, even if sometimes saying they will, then the board has no power to do much of anything about that, except, as you've done, you can publicly sanction that official for what you believe to be non-compliance with legal requirements and policies of the board. But again, because this is a legally established office, you don't have any disciplining authority.
No, because we are basically employees of the people who put us in office, and the only recourse is recall.
So, well, then that's not a board
That's not a board
That's
thing,
very
that's
clear
the
in the
public
law.
has to do that.
That's a remedy that belongs to the electorate. What we're talking about is action options the board has, and I think we've covered those. You really have two. You can attempt to find some justice in the whole situation, and you hope some changes through judicial involvement through criminal prosecution. And you have the option to try to obtain some remedies for your problems through a civil action in the circuit court.
Just one thing I want to mention here, I think this discussion is very good and helpful and informative. I do want to suggest here in terms of a way to get through the obstruction or the lack of documentation. I can put down a memo and go through the procedures, but there are other acceptable alternative forensic procedures for generally accepted accounting principles. That since a document can be acquired and copied, we can make specific guidelines, recommendations on the journal entries. And so that could at least bring your books up to date. And then this other process that you have here may take longer. So I'm trying to get the horse in front of the cart. So I think we have some choices to make. I can make them recommendations to the board. I've done this in the past to get records current. We have documentation, and I will present that at a later time.
How do we get bank documents when we are not sure where all the banks, where the money is, and the only authoritative signature or access lies in the treasurer? So per se, we have an account at Honor Bank. I have no authority to get information from Honor Bank.
Do we have a procedure that will address that I can present? And that means you still go through your process, but we're trying to get the records closed.
My push is to get us balanced, get our balance to our budget, so that we stop bleeding fines and fees and look at more. We need, by March, we need to have our ducks in a row.
If there are alternate means to obtain records sufficient for the township to know that your financial affairs are in order, without having to engage the court system, I would think you'd want to exhaust those options first.
I agree.
Particularly as you're coming up towards the end of the fiscal year.
I don't want to incur more.
And if you go the criminal prosecution route, you will not, first of all, you don't have any control over that. Once you initiate it, you won't spend a lot of money on that.
But it could take a long time.
It can take a long time, and I will tell you
But it helps
that
us what we need for
if a defendant is an official of the township, charged with something, I think it's possible, if not likely, that the township's insurer may have a duty to provide defense to that. I'm not sure if that's the case.
We've already
depending on
filed a
particular
thing with our
charges.
risk management.
Okay, and I can tell you with certainty that if you go the civil action route, and whether you're seeking a special master appointment or you're seeking preliminary injunctive relief or some other kind of relief on an interim basis, and then there's all kinds of discovery by the parties, and there's motions, and you'll all spend a whole bunch of money, and legal counsel for any other party will spend a whole bunch of money on lawyers, and eventually, after probably months, you'll get somewhere.
I don't see how that, I just don't see that rectifying the situation.
Yes,
I was gonna say, I've had over 10 years of governmental accounting experience. I unraveled the onion of, I know the accounts you're using. I can make some suggestions. I'm not gonna charge for it. Here's what I think you need to do at a very efficient cost. And if I'm in the loop in terms of overseeing this, and we have a dedicated team, which I think we have in place to follow this, then I can just sign off on each step. But we gotta fix it ourselves first.
I agree, but my concern is Amy Plumstead is the accountant who has done the most work for us, and she is the most knowledgeable in the area, and she's made it perfectly clear that this is tax season, and she is not going to have a lot of time to help us. So I, as one person, will not be able to clean this mess up. Where are we going to enlist the help? How are we going to find the bank accounts? These are my concerns. Can we run our tax ID and find out where all our money is? You know, is there money being held in her personal residence? We have no idea. So how do we rectify those so that we can balance, get the township money safe, orderly, and accounted for?
I have suggestions on how to do this. I know it seems overwhelming, but for me to say here it's hopeless, I'm not doing my job. I think there are alternative procedures we can move this forward, and what may be a big problem could tear its way down. I don't want you to just feel you can't do anything. I'm saying there's some...
Well, that's the way I feel, that's the way I've felt since I stepped into this office, is I feel that I can't do anything to help the township to balance the books, to get us back on track.
I disagree with that, because you already have half the entries already in the books.
I understand what you're saying,
Half the entries are there.
but it's the lack of tangibility.
No, I understand your pain. I understand the pain. I'm trying to step back and say we have some alternative procedures that are already in the books and records, and we can bring the books up to date with what we had and then chase the dollars afterwards.
What's the pleasure of the board? How do we move forward with this?
I prefer to stay out of the courts. I prefer that we get the books cleaned up as fast as possible and get the township on track and for our March closing and go forward in the new year with hopefully something
I'll have some
new.
suggestions that we could utilize to get those steps moved forward so we can start building our budget for next year and start, securing things without going down that legal road. Spend more taxpayers dollars.
I'm looking at solutions while you're talking about problems, is what I'm trying to do. I don't want to add to it. I'm throwing the lifeline out here we need to consider. And you cannot make an intelligent decision tonight. But I'm glad we had this meeting. I'm glad the people are here. My report stands as is. And I think since things aren't going to change, I have some solutions I can put to you to suggest. And it's going to be painless. You already have records I can help you with right
It's
now.
going to drag it out. It's going to cause this town cost. I'll say this loud enough. I don't want to go into the court system. I would like to avoid that if any way possible. I would like us to work as a community to solve this without drawing any more lawyers and courts into this. We need to get access to our accounts and we need to get stuff cleaned up, and if Carl has a way for us to do that, I'll be open to it. I just feel like I'm between like a rock and a hard place because I have no way of fixing
And
it.
when you talk to the banks, if I may please, would you make it clear that, because I know this is a concern, there has been a concern, I think, with Debbie. When you talk to the bank and you're talking about the clerk having access to records that ought to be readily forthcoming from the treasurer, to the clerk, but are not. When you're seeking those records from the bank directly, you're not talking about the clerk having the ability to move money
Right.
in the account. That's not what you're asking for. You're simply asking for someone other than the treasurer of the township to have access to the core records that pertain to that account, such as deposit records, such as checks written, such as bank statements, for the account that belongs to the township of Arcadia, not the treasurer.
But nobody has authority to do
And
that,
if,
but
and
the
if, and
treasurer.
if the banks won't, then you need to,
Round robin.
you need to take those banks off your approved depository list and find another bank who understands the kind of relationship that township officials have to manage township and account for township funds.
And Carl, you can work that through for us and make
Yes.
sure that that happens.
Yes, I can, I'll put together what I call a time frame, of action that we can move on. I'm tired of looking at the same things. I mean, I already got enough records to look at. If you go to legal way, you're talking a year plus,
Okay.
at least a year.
And this township doesn't need any more of that. We are a unique, special community, and this has just torn our community apart. And this board has tried so hard to be able to move forward with not much success. So any more discussion with board members? Are we comfortable with moving forward with the final reports and going that route?
Yeah, we need to get that final report. My only concern is, we've been down this road over and over and over again. How are we gonna ensure compliance?
I don't think that we can ensure compliance by the treasurer, but I do feel that if there are ways that we can get the information we need, and yes, it'll cost us to have someone help us get it put together and get it put to bed, I think that needs to be the township goal, is to secure our finances and the financial information.
I absolutely agree.
And the treasurer's compliance will have to be up to, we'll have to find a way to circumvent it, and if we can circumvent it, at least we can function. And I think that that's about the best we can do as far as from a board power.
Well, okay, that's not exactly what I mean.
Okay,
We're gonna take action at this point to get things fixed up, and we can close out year end.
right.
Put things in place, you can work your magic, get your documents that you need to rebuild all this stuff. Okay, we get it fixed. What are we doing to prevent it from breaking again? Because we've been down, that's
Well, we
that's
don't
my
have that
point.
power.
Well,
You're going to use, what I'm hearing is Mr. Hazer is going to provide to the board some ideas on some alternate ways to obtain records that will be sufficient, not the way they should be forthcoming, but, and maybe not the same records, but records that will be sufficient to enable, in this instance, the clerk, to do the duties of the clerk that relate to reconciling balances and accounts and knowing where the township's funds are, and if it's there in the correct amount. That's what I'm hearing. If that's true,
That's our goal.
then that's like job one, I would think, right?
Right.
And while I understand why board members would be frustrated about hearing out of that doesn't mean things are going to magically become normal
No.
in this township. Again, I'll just reiterate, you as the board you're not the treasurer's boss in this sense. You do not have the authority to fire the treasurer, the people do.
Yeah. And that's the only recall.
Correct.
Yeah.
Just wanted to just make a comment here. This idea of alternative procedures came up during the discussions. I'm not seeking a new engagement here. I feel your pain here and here, and I look at your bank account. And then I'm just trying to jump in and say, here's what we can do. I'll develop a plan, we can put some time frame on it. I can set up the plan, and I don't intend on me doing the work as much as see it's done correctly and give some direction to it. So it would be very efficient here in terms of having your staff or bring some part-time clerk said, it's all gonna be journal entries. I'm gonna tell you right now, journal entries, and I'm tying out the cash. We know how to reconcile bank accounts. We can get this all done here. And then, I think then, in the meantime, we'll be solving those other problems about access and so forth through the proper manner here.
So the methodologies we use to obtain this information, to balance our general ledger, and to get our books in order, will these be able to be used going forward until we can clear up the dysfunction?
Yes, they will. And you'll have what I call a report that is suitable for an auditor to come in and look at your financial records. Right now, you have nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
So, we have a board meeting on, a week from yesterday, on Thursday.
Thursday the 8th.
Thursday the 8th.
That's 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Now, is that
Next week's Thursday is first.
first, so it's
Yeah.
the following, so we have 2 weeks.
We have 2 weeks. Is that time, Carl, for you to present a plan, to have a plan ready for us to approve?
Give me the date
And
on
a
that,
dollar
please.
amount?
February 8th.
It's February 8th.
Yes, in advance for you. And, this is just a proposal. There's no
Right.
fee. I said, here's a way to get through this.
But we need to approve the amount that you've talked about already, the $7,000, so we'll need an itemization of that. So we're talking another $7,000.
That's from the past.
From
I'm
the
looking
past.
going forward
Right.
here. I mean, you'll get your final report. And then I'm saying, by the way, here's how you can fix the current problem. And my intention here is not to get another engagement as much as set up a plan, and the fee will be very minimal because I've been doing this for so long and I know the state of your records. And if someone's got a better plan, fine, but you need a plan to evaluate. That's my
The board
suggestion.
comfortable with that then?
So I understand, you're gonna receive the final report from, hopefully,
At the
final
board meeting.
report, not later than your board meeting.
Correct.
Hopefully, we're gonna have some discussion on that as need be and as appropriate at that board meeting. You'll receive contemporaneous with that, some supplemental assistance from Mr. Major's firm
Okay.
that will suggest these alternative go-rounds, if you will, to obtain the kind of records that primarily the clerk needs to be able to assure the board and the public whether or not funds are properly accounted for, and that will ultimately enable you to have an audit that will not fail,
Right.
a regular audit, annual audit. And I think it's a step at a time, folks. I mean, I wish there was some magic solution here, but a step at a time, you see if it's sufficiently successful to remedy the problems enough, as far as what's within your control, to enable the township to financially function,
Right.
albeit with
We can.
not the normal procedures. That's what I'm hearing.
You're hearing correct.
And you have other options when and if those might prove to be necessary to
Or
revisit.
prudent to do so, yeah. Any other discussion with any board members? We're all comfortable with this? I don't think we need to make a motion on this. We know what we're gonna be doing, and we're gonna be moving forward, and we'll receive the information from you, so we can discuss it intelligently at our board meeting. on
Yes, you
February
will.
8th. Okay.
If you are, when you get to the point where you think you're about to entertain a motion of adjournment, I'd like
Yes.
to take 2 more minutes.
Okay.
A question for you before that.
Okay,
And
go ahead.
You had mentioned this week a couple of,
You might have to speak up, Greg, because we don't have.
We don't
a
have
microphone on.
speakers.
you mentioned this week in an email to me a couple items that the board needs to address probably sooner rather than later.
That's why I want the 2 minutes.
Mhm.
Two of those items to me seemed like closed session items. If those are closed session items, would we be able to adjourn publicly today, go to closed and discuss those items, or do we gotta reschedule that?
Because we don't have a full
Sadly,
complement to the board.
the way the Open Meetings Act works,
since Debbie showed up, didn't show up, we can't.
Yeah.
If we had a full
Okay.
complement of the township board, we could amend the agenda and call for,
But you're limited to the posted purpose for which the
Yes.
special meeting was called without all board members being present.
and I want to let everyone know that all board members received this in writing and were aware of this special meeting.
They were hand delivered.
They were hand delivered. So everyone had the notice.
Okay, so these two items that I want to touch on, these are not the items of business for this meeting.
Right.
I'm just taking advantage of, frankly, me being here
Correct.
to say some things that I might say to the board at a subsequent meeting if I was attending. One of the items referred to by Trustee Wisner is a FOIA appeal. I have provided mail, if anyone has comments, will send the postage. Provided mail to the supervisor and the clerk as a memorandum on that topic. I'm expecting that that would be copied and made available to the other members of the board. That is a confidential and protected document along with the cover letter, which is also protected because that matter could potentially end up in litigation. I don't think it will, it ought not. But it's all laid out in that memorandum. I would encourage, because of the potential for subsequent litigation, for the board to entertain those legal opinions in that memorandum in a closed session. And you, time-wise, you're fine doing that at your February 8th regular meeting. There's a time element to that as you're reading the memorandum, but there's no urgency
Correct.
We have
before your regular meeting on
Because
the 8th.
we can go into closed
So
session,
you can go
session at our regular
It is
schedule.
permissible to go
Yes.
into closed session to address that issue at your regular meeting. The second item is something that I've spent just way too much time on, trying to get a handle on this recently, and what I'm going to distribute to each board member, I made 7 as long as I knew I was going to be here, concerns a matter that just was brought to my attention the 23rd, and to make a very long story short, there is a small, very narrow easement type parcel on the southerly boundary of the Valley Cove condominiums, which is now the subject of a county tax foreclosure action for non-payment of 2015 and 2016 township special assessments on the weed control project. I had to react very quickly and kind of on an evolving basis when I was trying to get to the bottom of this. But I lay all this out in, I think, very succinctly in this memorandum for the board members to consider. But the upshot of this is the current owner of that property, which is not, according to township billing records, the same entity that owned the property in 2015 and 16, is going to lose their interest in that property through the county foreclosure process unless those special assessments for those first 2 years are paid with a whole bunch of accrued interest and principal and fees, not later than 9 a.m. on, guess what date? February 8th. 9 a.m. That's the time, the scheduled time for the circuit court foreclosure hearing. Once that hearing is held and the judge signs an order, which is typically done at the hearing, at the conclusion of the hearing, that property owner will have a right to redeem for a period of time, but only by paying off the back special assessments. When I went through this whole mess, and I have my archive files from when the district was created in 2009 for the first 5-year program, and then the files for the second 5-year program, I discovered that this property was not part of the district properly, because it's abutting the lake, but it was not specially assessed the first 5-year go-around. It was, for whatever reason, on the roll, it was approved by the board for the second 5-year go-around. And then there's these intervening issues of change of ownership and change of mailing addresses and party that got the notice of the foreclosure proceedings, I can tell you, is not the party that owned the property during the 2015-2016 billing cycles. So it's just kind of a mess, but I concluded that this property is very much like several other parcels that when the board considered this special assessment roll, the board determined in February 2015 to exclude those parcels from special assessment because either they were association-owned common-use parcels, there were 2 lots in Starkey Point plat, and two little, what were described in some internal communications as little sliver parcels that in and of themselves had derived no benefit from the improvement. The property with which they were associated did, but they were specially assessed, the other parcels. Same thing here in my opinion, once I got through all the hoo-ha. Once I got to the bottom of this thing, I concluded, and I'm recommending the board openly in this memorandum, that this property should not have been on the roll. And my suggestion is reflected in, I decided just to cut to the chase. I prepared a proposed resolution, taking the chance that the board might agree with my recommendation, and decide to essentially amend the roll to rescind and cancel those special assessments on this property. And then direct the assessor, pertinent officials, which would be the assessor and the treasurer, to coordinate with the county treasurer to make sure that I got it all. That this gets, this being that resolution certified by the clerk after the board adopts it, gets communicated to county treasurer, hopefully well in advance of 9 a.m. on February 8th, because the county treasurer has indicated that he'll pull the property from the process.
So we have to have
You have to have a special meeting,
Yeah, so we.
or these people are going to lose their
Okay.
rights.
All right, so let's talk about what is a good date for it. We'll deal with that issue and that issue only.
There's Janice and Patty. Patty, you have the original of that resolution, part of yours. I have a copy for the assessor, please, and copies for the other 3 members of the board.
Is there
Is
any,
this for the assessor?
is there any urgency in the last matter?
The other matter that Greg's referring to is something I believe the board has already addressed, but I'm not, to my understanding, the board hasn't provided any, hasn't reflected its decision in any kind of a written form, and while that's not legally required, given that there's legal counsel involved with the matter, and that there's at least the threat of legal action, I just wanted to be sure that the board, since I was not a party to that previous board discussion, wanted to be sure that the board has sufficiently discussed it so as to be comfortable with where it landed, with either continuing to not provide something in writing to the other party or to provide something in writing. The subject matter is a claim of trespass brought by a resident of the township. In that matter, I do believe it might be best the board discuss in closed session. However, you cannot do that at the present time
That's a spirit.
without, no, I mean, you can't do it at any subsequent meeting without, unless there's a legal opinion that you could use to go into closed session. And I don't know if you need to necessarily do that. I guess I probably would suggest you do, but there's no pending litigation.
There's nothing.
So,
right now it's just-
and one appropriate answer or one appropriate response for the board when you, if this matter is on the agenda of a future meeting, is just really ask the individual board members at the meeting, are you comfortable with the manner in which we previously discussed this, board members? And I wasn't part of that, but how that was discussed was shared with me.
Yeah.
And if the board, consensus of the board is that yes, you are comfortable with how that was handled, including we don't need to spend time to communicate something in writing.
No.
then done. And balls in the other guy's court and knock yourself out.
Exactly.
And there's their potential counterclaim there
Right.
also, which the township would assert.
Correct. All right. Okay, any other comments, Greg?
You were asking for special meeting availability, I think I put
Right.
it in.
Yeah, but I just
That's all I
want.
was gonna say. Pick the day, I can do anything next week except for Monday. But any other day, I'm open.
I leave
Day
the
or night.
31st.
Okay, so what does Tuesday look like?
I need Monday night. just
You can do Monday?
I can do, yeah.
I can do
daytime.
Monday or Tuesday evening.
Yeah, so why don't we call for a special meeting on Monday at 6:30 or 7, does that work?
Monday the 29th?
7?
Seven is better for me.
Okay. We will post that and we will deal with the assessment issue at that meeting.
The purposes, the clerk will have to indicate the purposes for which the special
Purposes.
meeting is being held on the public notice.
Yeah,
And as well as, again, same process with all of you, that notice is given to board members,
yeah.
the manner the law requires.
Okay, so Monday at 7.
I think I told you everything I need to tell you in those, about those two matters, in those two written communications.
We'll leave those.
Oh, I did forget one thing, I'm sorry. I meant to put it in the memorandum on the special assessment, and I ran out of time, frankly, trying to get here. I spent a lot of time on this.
I know you have.
And all that time, I've tried to break out the billings for anything in special assessment because that's chargeable to the special assessment account.
Okay.
That's true with these two. And there will be a reimbursement, by the way, that's covered in that memorandum, but because the county tax revolving fund already paid the township for those 2 years of unpaid special assessments, so you'll have to reimburse the revolving fund, the county treasurer. But the county treasurer told me that he'll be content with just the principal only, and
Okay.
the interest, and which is saving a lot of
Lot
money.
of money.
Lot.
Okay, good. All right. Any other comments, Mike? Patty? Greg? I have none. Carl? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn the special meeting.
I'll make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you for being here.
Okay, from Arcadia Township Hall, this is Mike Tillerson on camera. You have a blessed day and pray for the troops to always win. Well, we got two cats here spending Saturday afternoon on Davenport. Honey cat. And Bubby. I don't know, it's Saturday afternoon about 1 o'clock. Looking south on 31. Tuesday gas is $2.70. I'm looking west on busy First Street. Seems like sometimes the traffic really picks up on a Saturday in Manistee. .31 and First Street. While I'm progressing downtown, I'm now on Division and River Street. This is like a little walking tour. Sure is nice sunshine today. I'm looking at a white sculpture down here in this little park. I have not a clue what it is. I certainly hope it's not pornographic. Well, I'm down to Maple. For me it takes a while, but for you it's just instant. Some of you have probably been wondering how many blocks between the museum and the fire department. We're going to find out. One. Block 2. Popular. Yeah, this is block 3. Greenbush. Seems to be a lot of traffic downtown today. Here comes a car. This is 4, I think, Division. Well, this is block 5, I believe. Highway. Block 6. Block 7. Eight. Lighter and Hancock. This is block 9. Block 10, the fire department is, First Street. A rescue unit going out somewhere. They helped me out once. Passed out. Pretty much passed out. They rescued me. We got the former Glenna, Michigan. Used to make high quality clothing, and it was closed for many years. Then became a laser tag and bounce house. Now it's going to be a church. Soon. It'll be a conservative Christian. They're a plant, I guess you call it, from Buckley. It's a picture in the paper, in the air, and it's about this much in my car. What was in the picture? I don't know if that makes me famous or what.
Forget it.
Black cat. Bubby is sitting on the back of a chair. He's taking in the sights and sounds and almost more excitement than he can handle.
Yeah, what? Give me one more chance. I'll prove I can take
Kitty.
over. I'll do anything it takes. I'll go back to high school and take
Kitty.
exams again.
Look at me.
And I'll get my
Kitty.
diploma all by myself. Billy, it wasn't
There you go.
just high school.
He did not look at me. He just happened to decide to turn his head.
Rock.
Cats are not very responsive to doing what they're asked to do.
R-O-C-K. Prove to you I'm not an idiot. And then I get to take over Madison Hotels.
Gray cat is here
You just think of that? Yeah, I did.
sleeping. Long, long hair.
Brian, don't you think the future of Madison Hotels and its 60,000
Gray cat
employees
enjoys, loves being a cat.
No.
She was born to be a cat. Well, actually, she was born a cat.
You passed every
Okay, hairball.